Guitar amps are loud. Quite frankly, they don't really sound great until you crank them. And few of us live in a place where we can play as loud as we want, whenever we want. However, amplifiers can be a powerful tool in shaping the character of your guitar tracks. Reamping allows you to focus on recording the amplified sound after you've already got the perfect guitar performance, keeping the time you spend with your amplifier cranked at a minimum. If you make music in a place where you have to limit your loudness time, if you like to try multiple amp, mic, and processing combinations for the same part, or maybe even layer them, if you want to be able to change the signal chain of the guitar during the mix, if you need to edit your guitar parts to get them just right, then you need to know how to reamp. And this video is going to tell you what you need to know. Okay, so I'm going to get started reamping this primary melody baritone guitar that I'm using in the composition. It's this instrument right here. I love this instrument. Let's just hear what the direct signal for this baritone guitar sounds like. Okay, so that gives you an idea. Now I'm going to change the output from the stereo output, and I'm going to use my auxiliary outputs, which for me with Logic and with my interface are output 3 and 4 here. Now the guitar is out in the live area and it's routed into my 1966 Univox amplifier, and then I'm re-recording it. It gets routed back in on these tracks here. I'll turn the delay and reverb off so we can just hear it. Now let's turn the whole composition on. You kind of hear how it sounds. I'll turn the delay and reverb back on. I like that, but this is the beautiful thing about reamping. I didn't record that, although I could have. I think that I would like to have a little bit more trebly tone, maybe a little gain. So watch this. I can just run into the room, change the amp setting, how I think I might like it, use the same performance to record the amp live playing the same melody. So I'm going to run into the control room. I'm going to tweak the amp a little bit, and then we're going to try it again. Okay, so I gave the amp just a little bit more gain and a little bit more treble. On this particular amp, as you turn the tone knob to the left, it also rolls off the bass. Let's listen to it again. So let's record it. Okay, so now we've recorded this baritone guitar, and we had the opportunity to tweak the amplifier, already knowing that we had the performance done. So it took the guitar out of my hands to focus on the sound of the guitar. So here is how you reamp, and it's actually quite easy. All you really need is a direct signal. Now, a lot of times for performance, we need a little bit of a tone to feel like we're in the groove. So the way I would recommend doing it is using something like this, some sort of box that splits the signal. Now what this allows me to do is to play in the guitar and separate the direct and an amp signal. That way when I'm actually playing the part, I can play it through an amp, or just play it into an emulation in your DAW. So if I've done that, what I'm really going to see in the track is the direct signal. So at that point, I'm ready to come out of my DAW. So in my case, all I have to do is come here to the signal that I want to reamp, and I send it to output 3 and 4, it's actually sending both of those signals down the line into that room, and I could actually use 2 amps if I wanted. I could go out both of those signals, but you're taking the output of your direct signal out of the DAW, out of your interface, and into your amplifier. Another huge advantage of reamping is how much easier it makes it to edit your parts. It's always easier to edit a direct signal. So if you can do your editing before you run the part through your amp, then you make your life a lot easier. Let me show you why. Look down here at this lead part. If I look closely at the part after it came out of the amp, it's really difficult to see where the transients are. It'd really be quite an effort to edit this accurately. This is the direct guitar part. And if you look closely, the transients are really well defined. So if I wanted to come in here and edit any of these individual notes or move them, it's much easier to do that accurately in the directly recorded part than it is to do it in the reamp part. And I actually recorded it with a stock Logic sound. So I'll turn those plugins back on. Which I liked it okay, but it sounds like an emulation to me. It doesn't sound so much like a real amp. Then I came through and I did my edits. I took this direct signal and, like I showed you before, piped it out of the DAW and made it into something that sounds like this. That was much easier to do because I was editing the direct guitar part instead of having to edit the amped guitar part. So this composition that I'm using to demonstrate reamping opens with the palm muted figure that I'm playing on a Stratocaster. It's kind of like that, changes a little bit. But I wanted to use a little bit of delay on it, and I really wanted it to be tight and sharp, so needed to have really good time. I chose to take this particular guitar through my Fender Blues Junior, and then this is what the part sounded like after I had reamped it. And of course, because I used a few different mics, I could spend some time now blending the ribbon mic and the SM57 without having to worry about my performance. With less 57, a little bit warmer sound. And then with less R10, a little bit brighter sound and a little bit roomier sounding. So because I recorded the signal directly and then reamped it, I was really able to have a lot more control over my final product and how it interacted with the other elements in the mix. You know, it only takes a second every time you record guitar to run through a splitter box and make sure that every time you capture your guitar, you also capture the direct signal. So you can always go back and reamp. Your mix engineer might also want to reamp your guitars. I know that when I mix other people's music, it's really nice if I also have the direct signal, because then I can take the client's guitar signal and I can run it through my amps. Sometimes you can improve upon the signal that was sent to you when you're mixing. So this gives you the flexibility during mix to further choose what kind of amp you want to use. As the composition develops, a melody guitar enters, and I used kind of a twangy, plainsy, country western inspired Telecaster sound, and I really liked that guitar through my vintage Univox amplifier with a little bit of tremolo. Here's the way the guitar sounded the direct signal. Now let's hear how it sounded when I reamped it. And because I reamped it, I was really able to dial in just the right sound. And I was also able to hear, because I could hear how things were developing as I went, I could hear that I wanted a little bit less transient attack and a little bit more room sound on that particular guitar. So I moved the microphones a little bit away from the speakers. So I get to think about decisions like that, independent of having to think about my performance. So it really helps me dial in how the guitars are going to interact with one another after I've already played the part from a sound perspective. It takes the guitar out of my hands while I'm focused on the sound. The composition also features a second baritone guitar in the second half of what I call the loud section. I wanted the two baritone guitars to have different tones and trade relatable ideas with one another. So getting the sound right was really important. And I was able to do this because I was reamping. Let's listen to those two guitars together after I reamped them. Here comes the lead guitar. So we have all of these different textures that are interplaying with one another, and they fit together quite nicely. They'll especially fit together nicely when we replace the sampled drums with some real drums. All of these different guitar elements are fitting together quite nicely, even though there are a lot of different textures, because I was able to design those textures as I went. I didn't have to think in advance what is the sound for all of these guitars in advance of playing them. I was really able to capture the tone of each instrument individually to make sure that they worked well together. And I was able to do this because I reamped.